Tonight on Gloom Station, I'm going to share with you a subscriber story from Dana S. Of a mirror that is not what it seems. Can an item really influence us? Can it control our thoughts and hinder our bodies? If you want to know the truth, then dim the lights, find somewhere safe, and listen to this haunting story of the painted mirror. When I first saw the painted mirror, I just thought it looked cool. I could not have imagined it would go on to torment me. I have a little bit of the mirror's history, but now that's all I have left of it. It was leaning against a dumpster at my apartment complex, along with a wooden rocking chair and some other random things. The night I discovered it, I was just throwing a bag of trash away, but as I got closer, I thought the chair was in pretty good condition. I looked at it from all sides and couldn't see anything wrong with it. I pushed on it, and it rocked fine, so I pulled it aside and sat down in the chair. It was a perfectly functional rocking chair. Then I moved on to the mirror. At first, I didn't know the glass had been painted over. The mirror was facing the dumpster, so imagine my surprise when I leaned it back and saw the reflection piece had been covered perfectly with black paint. The frame itself was ornate and looked like stained wood. It was a gorgeous piece, even with the mirror part covered. It looked really interesting and easier to move than the chair, so I decided to come back for the chair. I picked up the mirror and headed to my apartment. Of course, I considered using my nail and scratching away the black paint, but the more I looked at it, the more I kind of liked it as it was. It definitely wasn't something you see every day. I had a few things on the walls already, so after moving some stuff around, I decided to place the mirror on the wall over the TV, which was standing on one of the stands with cabinets on each end. I stood and looked at it for a minute. It really was an awesome piece that made the room feel larger even though the mirror itself was covered. It was strangely welcoming in a way that made me want to just look at it for some time. Eventually I made dinner, watched a movie, took a shower and laid in bed before realizing I never went back for the chair. Even in bed, I shrugged because the chair would be gone in the morning, and I wasn't going to get out of bed for now. So the next day I found myself looking at the mirror each time I walked past it. Even though it was painted over and showed no reflection, it still caught my eye. There was something uncanny about the mirror. I guess because mirrors typically show us ourselves, the fact that this one was incapable of showing anything made it seem wrong somehow. At that moment I considered taking a razor blade and scraping the paint off, but I decided against it. I figured removing the black paint would destroy the art of it, but as the day went on I noticed I was looking at it less and less. In fact, whenever I walked past it, I would look at my feet or stare ahead of me just to avoid looking at it anymore. It was like I'd suddenly developed a reflex to avoid it, even though I genuinely liked the mirror. This subconscious action went on for about 2 days before I finally forced myself to stop in front of the mirror and look into it. It's not like I could see myself in the mirror. The glass had been painted black. All I could do was admire the wooden frame around the glass, and even that was now somewhat plain. But something about this mirror was making my body tense up around it. I went into the kitchen and grabbed a knife, thinking I could just scrape the paint off. Then I would know for sure it was just a mirror and my body could relax. I held the knife to the glass, and before I could scrape it, I felt eager. Like way too eager. Anxious and compulsive. I wanted to rip and tear the paint off. I wanted to shred every bit of the black paint from the glass. I was desperate to free it. Upon realization of what I was doing, I instead dropped the knife and stepped back. Why would I have thought those words? Free it. It was just a mirror, there's nothing inside it to free. Just glass and wood, but that extreme compulsion I had just felt overwhelming, nauseating. I knew right then the mirror had to go. Whatever was underneath the paint could stay there. I was over it. I wasn't going to free anything. I was going to put it right back where I found it by the trash. I pulled the mirror from the wall and my arms nearly dragged me to the ground. The mirror was incredibly heavy. Heavier than had been a few days ago, but that was impossible. I shook it off and headed to the door, but I felt a tingle in my skull and a sudden urge to sneeze. A combination I knew all too well, meaning I was about to get a migraine. I'd have about 5 minutes before it hit me, so I needed to get my medicine right now. The mirror could wait. I set it down against the wall and hurried to my room for the sumatriptan medicine that kept migraines from exploding. Each step made me feel better. Every step away from the door, I felt the tension in my brain lessen. I took the pill, swallowed it with the water kept by the bedside, and turned back to look at the mirror. I kind of felt silly. It was just a mirror. The heavy feeling in my arms had to have been just another migraine aura. away from my body to warn me of the incoming pain. The mirror didn't cause anything. It couldn't make me have a migraine. That would be ridiculous. Yet I thought it. I thought it right then that if I were to try and move the mirror out of my apartment, that the migraine waiting in my head would erupt. I decided to deal with the mirror tomorrow and go lie down. Prepare for the torment a migraine brings. But it never came. The pill must have blocked it, even though it's meant to just lessen the severity. No, somehow the pill this time had stopped it. That had to be it. Because if that wasn't the case, then it had to have been the mirror. And that simply couldn't be. At least at the time, I didn't want to believe it possible. I went back to avoiding the mirror for a few more days, just pretending it wasn't even there, leaning against the wall near the door. But eventually I knew I needed to get the painted mirror out. It was taking up space. It was in the way. And yes, it scared me. It had to go tonight. I needed to put it in the dumpster so nobody would see it again. I stood over the mirror looking at the back of it, which felt safer somehow. It didn't feel like something was going to reach out and grab me. So I used this to my advantage, and without further consideration, without provocation, I opened my door, then grabbed the mirror and ran out of my apartment full speed to the dumpster where I had found it. I felt dizzy while running. I felt my lungs barely getting any air. I felt my legs ready to give out. The dumpster was only 5 or 6 apartments from my own, yet I felt like I had been running for a mile already. I reached the dumpster, set the mirror down against it the way I had found it, and stepped back while struggling to breathe. The walk back to my apartment was quick and easy. I actually felt refreshed. I felt happy and relaxed, like the air around me had been positively charged. Things were literally already better now that the mirror was gone. I made some dinner, watched a movie, laid down, and could not stop thinking of the painted mirror. I wondered if it was still there, or if someone else had already claimed it. I wondered if it was going to rain and somehow wash the black paint from the glass. I couldn't sleep, not knowing it was just out there waiting for some other idiot to take it. Before I knew it, I was out of bed and putting my shoes on. No, this wasn't some spell of the mirror. This wasn't me going back to save it. This was me keeping guns off the street. This was me doing the community a service. It didn't need to be leaning against the dumpster. It needed to be in it. For whatever reason, I knew it would attack me. It would try and stop me, try and hurt me. I also knew that thinking any of that was nearing insanity. It is just a mirror. Yet I knew it was more. I headed to the dumpster. Each step I expected something to stop me, something to hinder my mission. I got closer, and my stomach dropped. Someone was near the dumpster, looking at it. I needed to stop them, save them. I gently called out hello as I approached. The person, it was a woman, older than me by a decade or so, looked at me, and then we looked at each other in silence. It was an awkward moment while I mustered the courage to try and talk her out of picking up the mirror. But I didn't need to talk. She did. "Was it you that brought this back?" she asked me without looking away. I didn't need to play dumb or ask questions as if I didn't know. Somehow we both knew. "Yeah, you're not trying to take it, are you?" I asked her. "Definitely not. No, I got rid of it once already. But I got worried when I noticed it was gone before pickup day," she told me. "Why didn't you just put it inside the dumpster?" I asked, because that would have saved me from ever touching the thing. That would have prevented me from hanging it up in my apartment. But what she asked next hit me like a slap in the face. "Why didn't you?" I didn't have a response. I instead looked at the mirror I had leaned against the dumpster, just now realizing that earlier, I had also meant to put it inside the dumpster. I took a step back to her so that we could both see the back of the painted mirror. "What's wrong with it?" I asked, desperate to understand how a silly thing could cause so much unease. She sighed, then explained everything. She actually started by telling me that mirrors have been around since at least 6000 BC, and that they have always been seen as either a window to the other side, or a portal. She told me she was a practicing witch, something I may have laughed at a week ago, but right now just made me feel more afraid. She used the mirror in some kind of ritual, using words she would never repeat, as a means to see into the other side. She wanted to use it as a window, but it became immediately clear to her that she had instead created a portal, and something evil had used that portal. She further revealed that she had been the one to paint the mirror black, in an attempt to keep the evil trapped within the glass. It was quite the story. But there I stood next to a dumpster listening to a witch tell me about a haunted mirror. It was right then I began to question my life choices that led me to this point, because the situation sounded crazy, not to mention unbelievable. Until she told me about her constant urges to scrape away the paint. She told me of how the mirror would sometimes call to her, while other times her body naturally avoided it. She told me how hard it was for her to actually get the mirror out of her apartment, and how relieved she had been to put it by the dumpster, only to realize that someone else might encounter the mirror the way that I had. So we stood in silence, appreciating the item in front of us. I decided I needed to be done with it, and so did she. I asked for her help, and when I nodded to the dumpster, she looked relieved. We quickly picked up the painted mirror and threw it into the dumpster before it could try and stop us, before it could fight us. The woman then smiled at me, not a happy smile. No, this was a smile of an apology. I smiled back, then returned to my apartment. Since then, I've been very cautious when looking into mirrors, because you never know what could be looking back, and what could be waiting to come through. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more, all you have to do is like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments what you thought about this video. Right now, you should check out the other videos shown on screen. Something tells me if you liked this one, you'll enjoy those too. But that's it for tonight's episode. Stay safe out there.